Wall Street banks were given a huge giveaway in the recent budget bill passed by Congressional Republicans, and as 2015 gets underway, the big banks are hoping that weakened consumer financial protections will help make 2015 to be their best year ever. Joining me now to talk about this is Richard Eskow, host of the Zero Hour. Richard, right before the close of 2014, we had Republicans in Congress, a few Democrats as well, decide that they wanted to give one final push, give Wall Street one last little 2014 present in the form of this Cromnibus bill, take away some of the Dodd-Frank protections, Volcker rule, all of that. Give us a brief explanation about what happened right there at the close of the year for Wall Street.
Well, what they were supposed to be doing was to pass a bill keeping the government open. Remember how we were told that the Republicans had learned their lesson and there weren't going to be any more threats, no more gamesmanship. This was, although it didn't get covered that way, this was a repeat of the old-fashioned gamesmanship, but we still don't know exactly who inserted this language into the funding bill or the measure to keep the government open, whether it was a Republican or a Democrat. Certainly it had supporters on both sides of the aisle, including the president, by the way. But what happened was they inserted a provision saying that one of the key provisions of Dodd-Frank, the so-called Volcker rule, which limits the ability of bankers, especially the five biggest banks, to gamble essentially with taxpayer backing, that they would delay that even further. Now, this rule has been, the law was passed in 2010. It was supposed to finally come into effect in 2015. Now they're saying it's pushed off a couple years, and, for all we know, probably will never get passed.
So right now, we've just entered, I guess, the fifth year since Dodd-Frank and the Volcker rule were passed. Year number 5 here, we still have essentially nothing. I mean, we have not put any meaningful reforms, regulations, safety measures, anything in place since the massive economic collapse of 2007, 2008. And so here we are. It feels like we're sitting here just waiting for the next crash to happen. And Congress, with this Cromnibus bill, a must-pass bill, as you pointed out. They knew they could put this language in there. There's nothing we can do because we have to get this bill passed. We have to keep the government open. So in this year, when we're going to get stronger Republican majorities in the House, Republican-controlled Senate, what's the hope on the horizon here?
Well, that's the good news, is that we did see a lot of pushback this time around from some genuinely tough fighters on the Hill. And leading the charge this time around was, not surprisingly, was Senator Elizabeth Warren, who was absolutely terrific in terms of naming and shaming everybody involved with trying to make this happen, calling out the last two Democratic administrations as well as the Republicans for being too cozy with the big banks, calling this what it is, which is a giveaway to the five biggest banks, naming Citigroup, which is the worst of the offenders. And so we had the side of Senator Warren fighting, but we had a lot of people joining her. Nancy Pelosi on the Hill and a number of other Democratic folks there on the on the House side really stood up and fought in a way we haven't seen for quite a while. And it may be, and of course we had usual heroes in the Senate, Sherrod Brown, Bernie Sanders, and so on, but it may be that we're beginning to see a Democratic Party that is smaller in numbers, but is tougher and has an ideological message, and maybe more of its members are less willing to coddle Wall Street and give it these big favors. And if that's the case, we could see a real ideological choice in 2016. Now, I'm not popping the champagne corks yet, but it's a good sign.
Well, one of the things we've seen with the Democratic Party countless times, especially during the Bush administration, when they had during the years when they had the White House, the Senate, and the House, is that when you do have those fewer Democrats, when their backs are against the wall, they really do tend to come out and fight. It almost feels like when they have the majorities, they forget how to fight, they lose their backbones, and they just, go for whatever the minority wants to do. But now we really are seeing pushback, and I think one of the greatest instances of pushback in recent weeks has been Antonio Weiss. I mean, we had a lot of Democrats that you probably wouldn't even expect come out and say, whoa, you cannot put this banker in charge. Obama, what are you thinking? I mean, so where are we now with Antonio Weiss?
Well, Antonio Weiss, of course, is the Lazard banker who was appointed to very top posts in Treasury, in charge of all domestic finance issues. And you're right, Elizabeth Warren was the first to come out against him. Basically, the idea that yet another Wall Streeter is being put in charge of our economic policy. It's outrageous. So she's had a number of senators join with her, including the good guys you'd expect. And as you mentioned, a couple you might not. Al Franken is a good guy, but he hasn't necessarily been a leader on banking issues. He's come out against it, if I recall correctly. Joe Manchin, who is not normally thought of as a lefty by any means, has said he's not supporting this choice. So you're really seeing a split. What you're seeing is a number of Democrats are defending him, saying he's a good guy, we should keep backing him, but a number are saying, look, this is not the kind of representation we need and not the kind of leadership we need of our economy. And that, again, that's a promising sign.
So, if we go back to the beginning of our conversation here, it had looked like Wall Street heading into 2015, and now that we're into 2015, was going to basically have one of their best years ever. They had gotten their wish list fulfilled at the end of 2014, coming in, rules delayed, they get to continue to gamble with our money, backed by our money. But now, hashing it out a little bit, as you had pointed out in a conversation we had, this is not necessarily the year of Wall Street's big payday. This could be the year of fighting back. About a minute left. What do you think? If you just had to look into your crystal ball, what do you predict for the next 12 months?
Well, I would say there's going to be more resistance to these Wall Street measures, perhaps than they predicted. But whether this is going to be a successful year of fighting back or not, I'm going to put that back in everybody's camp that's listening right now. It's up to us to pressure our leaders, whether it's demonstrations, whether it's emails, whether it's letters, whether it's going to town halls. If we put the public pressure on to keep fighting Wall Street, to restrict them, to not put Wall Streeters in charge of our economy, I think we can have some victories this year, even with Republicans in control. But if we're going to do that, it's up to us to keep up the pressure. Without public pressure, it will still be Wall Street's year.
Richard Eskow, host of the Zero Hour with the Campaign for America's Future. Thank you for everything, and we will talk with you again very soon.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.